I've done a very quick summary of them, but based on these facts, I've concluded that this allegation has no factual merit. There was a disagreement between them as to whether the engineering requirement was appropriate or not, but I do not feel, based on the statements made by the witnesses, that the mayor threatened or intimidated anyone about this. I think this was a routine call similar to ones that she had made in the past. What was not routine about it, though, was that she had shortly before that call gone to work for the developer at issue. I think that city staff's current perception of that call is what has attributed, it's what has contributed to this allegation. Although Mayor Elam determined it would be inappropriate for her to represent CRS before the Planning Commission, and she hired an outside attorney to do that, she didn't similarly conclude it would be inappropriate for her to call Bobby Franklin. So there is an inconsistency in that analysis, in my opinion. But, I mean, to avoid the appearance of any personal conflict, the mayor could have disclosed her employment, or she could have just not called him at all and hired the outside attorney to call him. But I do not find that there's any factual merit in the allegation that she used threats and intimidation to try to kill this condition. Based on my analysis as well, the phone call at issue occurred after Mayor Elam began working for CRS, but before the ethics ordinance became enacted in Mt.Juliet. And therefore, the telephone call that she made cannot be deemed to be a violation, even if there was a determination that she had tried to threaten or intimidate anybody. So that's why it's really not consequential as to whether her date or Bobby Franklin's date is the right date. The fact of the matter is both of those dates were after she went to work for CRS, but before the ethics ordinance became enacted. So those are my findings on paragraph 1A. For paragraph 1B, the allegation in Mr. Wright's complaint asserts that the mayor used her position in an attempt to secure special consideration for Pulte Homes to be allowed to begin construction of new homes in the Del Webb subdivision before their infrastructure was complete, contrary to the city's ordinances and policies. This allegation revolves around a meeting that was requested by Mayor Elam, and that was held here at City Hall on Tuesday, January 23rd of this year. The meeting was initiated by email by Mayor Elam on Saturday, January the 20th, after she had taken a site tour of the Pulte Homes development here in Mt.Juliet. At the request of the Pulte representative, the mayor had gone out and toured the site and had understood that some of the difficulties related to the construction of the roads were due to the fact that it was January and it was wet weather. Based on the representative of the statements made by the representative from Pulte Homes, the mayor concluded that it would be best to get everybody in the same room at the same time so that they could try to figure out if there was another way that the city could handle this. So she called the meeting. She sent the email and she called the meeting, and attending the meeting at her request were Rob Shearer, Hatton Wright, Shannon Joyner, Bobby Franklin, Marlon Keel, the consulting city engineer, Louis Oliver, who's the consulting city attorney for planning and zoning, the mayor, and Chris Ryan, who was representative of Pulte Homes. During the meeting, this was the most difficult allegation factually for me to reconcile, because there were different recollections about exactly what was discussed and who said what when and what was said first, and so I did have some difficulty piecing this together, but there was some consistency on what the various witnesses said was discussed. First first of all, there was consistency among the statements from Hatton Wright, Shannon Joyner, Rob Shearer, and Bobby Franklin that at this meeting the mayor made forceful statements indicating her opinion that the city ought to be able to figure out a way to allow Pulte to be issued building permits prior to completing some of the infrastructure, which would have infrastructure includes roads, sewer, curbs, that type of item. And those four gentlemen also generally agreed that once the consulting city attorney, Louis Oliver, spoke up, that he made a statement that it was not permissible for them to allow the building permits to be issued before the infrastructure was completed, and that only the planning commission could waive that requirement. That generally concluded that discussion. There was also some discussion, well, there was disagreement about whether there was a discussion about whether Pulte should be able to use third-party building inspectors for this project. There was general agreement that there was some discussion about inspectors, but Mr. Wright recalled that the mayor advocated that Pulte should be able to use private building inspectors because they would be, once they started building homes, they would be moving at such a pace that the city didn't have sufficient staff to be able to keep up. That recollection is not consistent with the statements from the other witnesses. Mr. Oliver, in his affidavit, said he thought there might have been some discussion about building inspectors, but he thought that that discussion might have occurred after the meeting. So there was discussion about use of private building inspectors and some email exchanges that went back and forth in November of last year between Mayor Elam and Rob Shearer. A letter had been sent by another developer requesting that the city review the possibility of using third-party building inspectors. The mayor had forwarded that letter on to Rob Shearer and indicated to him that we should look into this, and can you take a look at setting something like this up? And I suggest we start with road construction to see how it works and go from there. There are email records to indicate that Rob Shearer sent a copy of that letter on to Public Works staff and suggested that they needed to talk about it. So there had been in the past a little bit of communication back and forth about whether the city should consider allowing third-party building inspectors to be used, but there was some disagreement as to whether it was actually discussed in this meeting with the Pulte Homes representatives. What was clear, though, is that it was the meeting became tense at one point, and the representative from Pulte Homes, when discussing building inspection, said that once Pulte began to get the homes built, they would not be able to sit and wait on building inspectors to come. And at that point, Mr. Wright evidently made a statement that he also didn't have time to be sitting in depositions related to bad construction by Pulte Homes. This is in reference to some other prior development in which there was some problem, there was some litigation, didn't involve the city, but Mr. Wright evidently was deposed as a witness. At that point, I think most of the witnesses agreed the meeting became somewhat unproductive because they had become confrontational with each other. The other fact that I think was just a little bit outside the meeting, but is relevant to this analysis, is that in the fall of 2006, Mayor Elam stated that in the fall of 2006, Pulte had indicated that they might be willing to contribute $100,000 toward the price of a new ladder fire truck. There had been, Mr. Shearer stated that there had been a great deal of discussion surrounding fire service in Mt.Juliet and negotiations with the county about fire service, and there was discussion about the city needing to get a ladder fire truck. And at some point last year, the mayor had a discussion with the Pulte representative, and they indicated that the development might be able to contribute some money toward the city's purchase of the fire truck.